Go live.
I've got it on my phone so I can see YouTube.
Rage on that beat, going crazy.
I look like I'm going to smack you in the face with a
Just streaming.
Rage on that beat, going crazy.
Welcome, one and all. Welcome to the Stadia Monday Night Chat. Yes, I am back. And apologies for not having a show last week. Self-isolation and family time and all that got in the way. But I've done my time, and now, hopefully, things are back to normal for the Stadia Monday Night Chat. Don't forget to sub. Don't like sub. It's a like, comma, sub, and all of that. And avail yourself to the super chats, because I've got to feed the kids, haven't I, somehow. So I hope you're all well. I hope chat is well. Welcome. I've decided to make a few changes around here. A slight change to the editorial and my approach to the show. And I'll tell you for why. There are plenty of Stadia channels, Stadia community channels there, of people just reading off the Stadia community blog or the news section of a Stadia site like Cloudy with the Chance of Gaming or Stadia Source. I mean, you can do that. You can read those sites. And they do a great job of collating what's going on and all of that. And they're great sites. And you should be reading them because a lot of people in the community put a lot of work into those sites. So always worth reading them. Always worth following them on Twitter, etc., so you know what's happening. But I wanted to add some value, not just regurgitate those news sources and nothing else. I want to add some opinions, some viewpoints, and some in-depth chat. Now, yes, of course, I will still be running through all that is new in the world of Stadia. And yes, I'll be making use of those sites. Of course I will. But this is called the Stadia Monday Night Chat. So I want to put back the chat and go in depth on some of the news, some of the opinions and issues around Stadia. But in order to instigate that chat, to give it life, to help mix the chat bowl, to bring the calm voice of reason when I go off on a rant, I need a fellow chatty. Ladies and gentlemen, it's The Rock. Yay! How are you, Rock? How are you, Rock?
Amazing, my friend. Absolutely amazing. I've sat myself in the easy chair, chilled, relaxed, had my coffee.
Going to be playing a few songs
ready for-
later, reading a story.
I was going to read a bit of Harry Potter.
Mm-hmm.
Just, potential for a second career. You never know.
You never know. All right. So I'm welcome to have chat. And now, chat, if there are any key points you'd like Rock and I to pick up on throughout the show, drop them in the chat, or better still, add them as a super chat. And Rock and I will, of course, discuss. So, despite my preamble, we will be taking a look at the news, as I said, as September is bubbling up to be a cracking month. And starting tomorrow with the September Pro games, let's just get straight into that. Which of these games are you most looking forward to? Let me just have a look at the news, Duo News. There we are. So we know we've got these great free games coming: Gunsport, Super Bomber, Man Online, Hitman, Hello Neighbor, Ember, and Metro Last Light Redux. Which of those games, Rock, are we kind of most excited about?
Well, I've played Hitman, I've played Metro. I'm quite keen to play Hello Neighbor because my little nephew George used to love that game. Now he's obviously moved on to Fortnite, bless him. I'm keen on Bomberman because a couple of reasons. One of them selfish. We've done PUBG to death on Friday nights, and this is the first. I think this will be the first time that we've got an alternative to be able to kind of do a mass community gaming session on Friday nights with a new game. So I'm looking forward to trialing it. And of course, although I don't think it's going to be until the Connect, which hopefully will be the end of September, we also get crowd play as a feature with it as well. Although, to be honest with you, I think crowd play will be great for people that game stream.
Yeah.
And are known for that. So you, for example, on a Friday or Saturday or weekend when you're doing Lord Kensal, and that is very much your game streaming show, then crowd play is us. But I think for most of my content, it won't make a huge difference. Yeah. But I think it would be great to see that. Ember, I'm looking forward to playing. I haven't played it. It's been kicking around for a little while. They've had a big update of late. So
a good time, presumably, to get into Ember with the added functionality and the bug fixes and stuff like that they've kind of undertaken, because it is still early access, isn't it? That's the terminology.
Yeah, still early access. Will be for a while, I think. And so it will come with its own little issues. But they've certainly plugged a few of those from what I'm told. I'm not too fussed about Gunsport. It's a sporty thing, and that's not my cup of tea. And second, I'm really not into 8-bit looking games.
Yeah.
So, but I do think that will be a great mobile game. And I think I said the other day, it's quite clear now that when they do roll out these 4, 5, 6 pro games every month, there's at least one of them that is very obviously focused on the mobile player.
I think we talked before about Stadia following a sort of almost a Nintendo Switch model in terms of having, obviously Nintendo Switch is slightly restricted in the big AAA games they can have, but they do their best to get good ports when they can. And they have the good indie games. So we know Stadia has those good indie games, but equally, it is a portable gaming system, the Switch.
Yeah.
So the mix of games they had perhaps reflects, like you've just said, that some games work really well on the move, on the go. And so it's that balance of a sort of family orientated, accessible, inclusive gaming system that that Stadia Man is Stadia Man. What was I saying? The Stadia is, hey, yeah, Stadia Man. The Stadia is trying to target.
Yeah, and I think the key thing is as well, and I think, you know, they've been building up to this. Whoever it is that puts these bundles together is clearly thinking about the kind of disparate socio-demographics and the different kinds of player that they want to attract to Stadia. And I think there's a lot of clues in what they're rolling out there, you know, in terms of who they think their potential audience is moving forward.
Yeah, I think you're right. Big shout out to Wolock there for the super chat. He says Bomberman is going to be a great game for Friday night. Quite right. And I'll touch on that in a second. And also, thanks for the Dream Team chat on a Monday night both. Oh, that's very nice of you to say there, Wolock. Thank you very much. But yeah, you touched on that, the Bomberman, and we might come to it a bit later. But I think the very fact that you said it would be good for your stream is indicative of what a good game it is for that Stadia YouTube intersection. You know, the playing of games and the watching of games, as we have seen with Fall Guys. You know, it's got good viewability because it's sort of a mass battle royale effectively, which is what Bomberman R Online is. It's a battle royale effectively. And, you know, everybody can join in and play. So you can sort of say, you know, come along and join in.
Yeah. And
sorry, super chat alert.
Yeah, look at this. Fantastic.
Thank you, Ray.
I say thank you. I ain't getting a penny of it, mate. But Clive says thank you, and Clive's kids say thanks. They get an extra roast potato.
Please, sir, can we have some more? The kids will eat tonight. They will do that. Their mums.
Yeah, I think one of the things that people aren't thinking about with Stadia, there's a reason why we're getting so much integration with YouTube. Somebody said the other day, do I think that we will see adverts in amongst the free-to-play games? And I said, no, I don't think we'll ever see adverts in games without the developer's permission. But the key thing where we will see advertising is, of course, around the streaming in YouTube. That's where they make their money.
They want content.
The whole reason for this existing is to push the content through YouTube. YouTube streaming, crowd play, community play, long hours of gaming, lots of recorded content.
Yeah. As you know,
that's where they can put their adverts.
Yeah, you know, as the YouTube creator, one of the things YouTube want you to do is have the watch hours. It's not about how many videos you put up. It's about the watch hours. And the best way to get watch hours is to streams. You know, most people record a video, put it up, it's 15 minutes, 20 minutes long, whatever. But when you stream, that's an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours, you know, or if you're Meg, 24 hours, you know, it's a substantial amount of stream time, of view hours.
Our Friday night PUBG sessions, which last for 3 hours, we consistently get 40 to 50 viewing hours out of those shows.
Yeah, that's
because obviously people are they're playing along with us in that time frame, and that is manna from heaven for Google. That is what they're trying to achieve here, because they can populate adverts. They can drop those adverts in. When there's a crowd play session, people are queuing up to play with Juggernaut or with Clive or whoever it may be. You're a captive audience, so they can put adverts in front of you.
Exactly. That's all
why
about the eyeballs.
That stuff exists. Yep, 100%. That's where the revenue's coming from them. You know, I think people say, oh, how can they possibly justify such a huge undertaking with a subscription like this? I think that's just a little bit of extra bunts. It's covering the cost of the electric. The money is going to come from the advertising revenue, which
no other platform has that extra revenue source, which is, you know, in a circle of benefit. Oh God, there's a word I learned which was the opposite of. I can't even remember what I was thinking of now, but the ever diminishing returns. There's a word I discovered which reflects the circle improving. Anyway, that's the point. Is what I'm trying to say is Stadia and YouTube are that. It's kind of feeds back and benefits each other and just improves.
Yeah. Clive, you've had another donation.
Yes. Oh, yes. Thank you, Dave Widnall and Rico. Subscribe. Thank you for the subscription, Rico. There.
Excellent.
Rico. And Dave Widnall, thank you. Never played Bomberman. Looking forward to laugh. I replayed Bomberman a long time ago. I think on the PS1 or something like that, probably. But this looks like a fun, epic kind of version. And looking from the pictures, I sort of get how it is. I think you've got these separate rooms, so you'll be focusing on initially only playing sort of against, I don't know, 8 people.
Yeah.
And then, but there are eight of those rooms. And then a door is opened and say 4 of them get out. So now you've got 4 lots of 8 or whatever, and so on until you all end up on the final big chart. So you'll only see it from your perspective effectively, or your block, your room, as it were, your little grid. I think that's how it works until you get down to the last grid, and then everybody's obviously on the same grid.
So it's like the elimination in Fall Guys.
Yeah.
Where you see the big wall at the end, and you see all the little fellas dropping off, and then you get down to the 1 or 2. Yeah. I wonder how that's going to work with us then.
Well, I think if you're in the same room or something, I'm not sure. We'll have to see how it is. But that's I'm saying that from an unqualified point of view, just looking at the pictures.
Yeah.
Looking at the pictures. That's all.
It makes sense. I know. Duncan or Cloudy are doing trying to get as many people together tomorrow to kind of try and test out what that whole 64 player thing looks like.
Yeah.
Because that. Yeah. Yeah,
I definitely want to jump on and give it a go. I mean, I'm looking forward to it. I just think it'll be fun.
It's just fresh, isn't it? It's nice to get something new and fresh. And the key thing is that ability to have multiple players. We've got games that allow you to do 4 and 8, but there's only PUBG that really allows it. I think that's not strictly true. Grid, is it, that does 40?
40.
Yeah, so you can drive around on your car,
which is great for streaming. Sonny does really well with his weekend streams with that, and Jem's done some, I think.
The problem I came up against quite early on with the Friday night thing was that if I'm on my own and playing, I'm not bad. I mean, there's worse. But if I'm playing and trying to engage with the audience and trying to engage with the guests and the hosts, and also directing and controlling the tech, I can't play at the same time.
No.
And it was getting me down because
you want to join in.
Well, it's not that so much. It's just not entertaining to watch me crash all the time because I've got my head elsewhere.
Yeah.
So that's when I came up with the whole idea of doing these separate cameras. So we drop in the screens from the guests. And what that's allowed me to do now is hardly ever show me play, but flick between those guys while I'm talking to chat, having a bit of a chuckle with the guys, or modifying the tech. So it's a massive learning curve. But for me, it's all about entertaining. If it's not entertaining to watch, it's failed.
Yeah.
So that's always been the thing for Fridays.
Now, one thing I wanted to talk about as well is this community. So, despite what I said at the beginning, there's a purpose I've got the community Stadia website up here. The way that they've worded this is quite interesting, and I went back, as I always tend to do with these things when I have a theory about something. I like to test it out. But up the top here, they've got first on Stadia, first on Stadia, new on Stadia. So these are headings that they're clearly, well, I hope that they're clearly looking to use on an ongoing basis. And I look back at the August free games one, and they didn't have it laid out like this. But I think it's a fairly nice, clear messaging.
Yeah.
that they categorize the games in that way, because you've got, first on Stadia, so that's your exclusive, and then new on Stadia, as in, okay, the game exists elsewhere, but it's brand new for Stadia players, and it's that kind of nice, clear messaging. What do you think about that? Do you think that's a good thing?
Always. I mean, in marketing, it's all about the message.
Yeah.
And if you can't use alliteration, then you've got to use something that is minimal syllables.
Yeah.
So,
some people don't get it if it's too complicated.
It's just the way our little brains, all of us, it's the way our brains work. So they're clearly going to work on a word on Stadia. It could be, play on Stadia, together on Stadia, family on Stadia.
Yeah.
I think that's the message they want to get across. So it's always on Stadia. So yeah, first on Stadia, brilliant. I mean, you don't need to say it's exclusive to Stadia.
No, it's first on Stadia.
It's
exactly
nice and simple. First on Stadia.
Yeah.
Stadia, unfortunately, is 3 syllables. We can't get around that. But if the other two are only 2 syllables, I always joke that absolutely the most criminal thing on the planet was that www, 3 letters, is 9 syllables, and for years we were
www.
Yeah, 9 syllables. I mean, that's like so many seconds in a radio ad. For years we're going around going, and you can get to us on the World Wide Web on www. Now that you don't need that anymore, people just go straight to the domain name. Slight rabbit down the rabbit hole there, but that's the point. You need to keep it crisp if you want people to remember it. We can only remember 6 6 numbers in a phone number. And same thing with syllables. So 1 syllable for the first word, on is 1 syllable, and then you've got your 3. So you've kept it to 5 syllables maximum. Should never be more than 6. That works.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's nice. Simple messaging is the key thing. The other thing that some people erroneously pointed out is what a marvelous video Stadia did for the September's new free Stadia Pro games. Amazing video. Why haven't they done videos like this before? This is exactly what they need. And everybody's going, yeah, no, that's right. Well, Stadia have got this right at last, all this kind of stuff. But as I think I pointed out on Stadia Source blog podcast, it's exactly the same as the August one. And just to prove my point, I will play the opening bit of September's new free Stadia Pro games. Right. So that, ladies and gentlemen, is the September one. And this, ladies and gentlemen, is the August one. So I think you get my drift. It's exactly the same template marketing video. And yet, I say a lot. I don't want to sound like sort of people I criticize saying, everybody says so. A lot. A few people have said, that even sounds a bit kind of vague as well. I've read on Twitter 1 or 2 tweets, let's put it that way, in which people are saying, there's an amazing video, Stadia getting their act together. It's great to see. This is the kind of video they need to be doing. Why weren't they doing it before? Blah, blah, blah. And they were. So the question is it just the content in terms of the games that people are confusing? So the video is presenting a lot more exciting games than perhaps the games in August. And that's what sort of people are getting wrapped up in. The excitement of the games that not just in this video, but the games that we've got coming in September generally, they are good, good games if you compare them to August. Some great games in August, but are people sort of seeing what they want to see?
So I think what we are seeing is there's been a consistent campaign now for the last few months, and it's like all good campaigns, they can often take their time. You know, when you first get the new album from your favorite artist,
Yeah.
and you listen to it the first time, you think, it's all right.
Yeah.
It's not brilliant. It's okay, but it gets into your
Growing on you.
head, right? And then after about the third or fourth listen, you can't put the darn thing down.
Yeah.
And yet, the first time you heard it, if you then heard a track on the radio, you would probably not even have recognized that it was a track from that album, from that CD. And a good marketing campaign does the same thing. It's a slow burn. It gets under your skin to the point where you don't even realize that you've been infected with the message. You know, there's a thing in the back of the brain called the reticular activating system. It's about the size of a little finger. It's part of your lizard brain, and it's there to filter out content. So the brain, we think, you know, we're in this world with lots of noise and sound and color and everything, and we see it all, but we don't. We only see what the RAS allows us to see. And it's usually when you're thinking, for example, you're thinking of buying a new mobile phone, all of a sudden everybody that you talk to's got that phone. Well,
You see it everywhere.
It always was the case.
Yeah.
It's just that it's being filtered because your brain knows that you're focusing on it. And once a good marketing campaign gets in through that gateway into the brain, you suddenly start to notice it. So you're right, Clive. It's a message that they've been working on for some time. And it's only now that it's sinking in and people are going, wow, this is good. And not realizing until you pop it up and show them it's the same one that they've actually seen before. It takes a time. And, you know, people say, oh, you never see any Stadia adverts around and so on. They're out there.
Yeah.
You just haven't noticed them, but you will start to notice them now.
We live in a world where the old-fashioned way of advertising, which just, you know, the old scattergun approach, and you hope that some of it hits, is history, especially with a company like Google, who specialize in targeted ads. So if you don't see any ads, maybe it's not targeted at you. You know, that's the main thing. These ads are there.
Exactly.
I get the ads, and I've got Stadia. You know. Carlos Bermudez in the chat says here, I'm just glad they got rid of those first commercials that they just had. They were weird and didn't quite make sense. Yeah. I think in retrospect, history will judge them badly, those ads.
There was a disconnect between the marketing department and the product team.
It sounded like marketing department had been working on that concept before they'd even sat down with it.
They didn't get it. They genuinely didn't get it. No. You absolutely know, and I wouldn't be surprised. I don't know the history of the campaign. I know the ads. They probably put them out to an agency. It's probably an agency they work a lot with, and they were focusing on the fact that, oh, you know, if we were launching the next Xbox or the next PlayStation, what would we want to do to get that in? And they missed the point completely. And then Google took it all in house. I think what we're seeing now is a result of their internal marketing team.
And the interesting for boring font spotters, it's the Google font and all that kind of stuff, and and it's about the games, and this month here are the games, etc. So it's all good, and I think as I say, history will judge that first Stadia marketing campaign harshly, and I think this is more like it.
And I think as well, Clive,
it's difficult.
It's in
a new concept, wasn't it, at the time?
Look, you know, Google Stadia a year ago was a startup, and what we were seeing then is what you typically see from a startup. Let's throw a load of stuff out there and see what sticks. And you never want to go back and have a look at it and say, was that a good idea? Because it's a journey, and ultimately stuff starts to work, and you think, yep, that's what we have to keep on playing with, and we concentrate on. But it was very clear back in those early days, this was not a business that had been building up its stock assets and its marketing messages, and even potentially knowing who its audience were back then, I would argue, versus the company that we see today and the company that we'll see in a year's time. I think it's very clear. You really can't compare the Stadia of the November 19th launch to the Stadia of the November 19th anniversary.
We're seeing it become more fully formed, which we might touch on a different show. But I think when they're ready to roll it out to the other countries, remember it's only in 14 countries, which is tiny weeny, it will be fully formed. Which I think underlines the fact that we are in the year of, I know we don't like to call it a beta, but of them rolling out all the major functionality that they promised. And when that's in place, and then you've got the AAA games on there as well, which we know are coming, you then have a fully formed product, which will continually develop with a great solid library of games. And you imagine if Stadia not that they could have started with that, but imagine if you're in Brazil or India and they go, here is Stadia, look at all the amazing things it can do, and look at all the amazing games that are on it. That's a very, very compelling product. And you don't need a leap of faith, or as much as a leap of faith as we as founders or people in the last sort of 9 months have effectively taken. And that's, I think, is the key destination, or the next milestone for Stadia, is to make the current functionality sort of complete, as it were, in terms of the crowd play and streaming and all that.
And it genuinely is. It's a race. It's a baton race.
Yeah.
We're the first guys that left the starting block with the batons in our hand. We get to November 19th and we hand the baton on to the next part of the journey.
I'm never letting go.
No, and do you know what I'd love to see? I don't know that it'll happen.
Yeah.
But I would love to see Google Stadia turn around at the end of its anniversary, and in some way, even if it's subtle and we get it because it's coded, say thank you to the founders, because I do think
we took the leap of faith.
We took the leap of faith, and I genuinely believe we were the tech testers, we were the tech provers, in order for them to take it on to the next round, which will be their proper audience, if you like.
They're in those doofuses that cancelled their founders' orders because they'd saw some dodgy YouTube video or read some bad press. Doofus.
Yeah. I hope they do say thank you, because I think go down well.
I think, without being greedy, I think it's worth some kind of present.
A little pat on the back, thank you community.
Prefect badge.
Our first year, we couldn't have got here without you guys. Maybe a little bit of a roadmap for where we plan to take things from now, but thank you for what you've done in getting us here to this point. Yeah, you can sit back and relax a bit now, guys, because here's Uplay Plus, and you can all have it for 6 months for free. You heard it here first, folks.
I mean, so just back on the advert though, not the ad. Well, it is an advert, yeah. The video for September as well. The other thing is that August is traditionally a quiet time within business generally. So when you consider the games we did get back in August, there's still a good handful. Was it 5 games in August?
I think it's been 5, 6, 6.
Yeah.
So it's 2. It's gone literally 2, 4, 5, 6, 6 in that kind of spread.
But August is traditionally quiet in terms of launching. You don't want to launch a massive game in August or anything like that, traditionally. And we're coming up to September, and as the September set of pro games have revealed, plus all the big games we know we've got coming starting from tomorrow, this is when the big games start to arrive. It's the next season within the year of big games from September between now and Christmas. And we know there are already, the big, ridiculously big AAA games coming to Stadia between now and Christmas, hopefully. And this is, this is the time, and it's starting, which leads us nicely, of course, to onto Marvel's Avengers, which launches tomorrow in its early access deluxe edition.
Deluxe, yeah.
Yeah. So, say this is one of the big AAA games that's arriving day on date with Stadia, showing that despite Stadia being only in 14 countries, which I've said before, publishers are on board. And Square Enix were one of the first on board, as this was one of the first big titles that was meant to launch within the first 6 months of Stadia launching. I'm not the first one to say it, but Doom Eternal was due in March. Cyberpunk was due in April, and Marvel was due in May. So March, April, May. The combination of these significant delays, plus, of course, what happened in March, COVID, has clearly had an impact on the trajectory, the Stadia sort of trajectory plan. And I say, I mean, do we think that's fair to say that there's obviously been some?
It makes you think, doesn't it? What would the Stadia landscape have looked like if those games had launched the days, the months that they were meant to have launched? So, by now we'd have had Cyberpunk, we would have had Marvel Avengers. There's no way people could turn around and say, "Oh, well, Stadia is
Uplay
not
Plus
to be
as well,
taken seriously," and potentially Uplay Plus as well by now. So I mean, it undoubtedly has had an impact. And if you look at it from that perspective and look at how they've managed it, actually hat off to them, because they have managed it. They've still managed to pull in some reasonable titles along the way. I mean, we were talking beforehand, Clive, about how there was one developer that tweeted over the last few days that they were asked when their game was coming. I forget the name of the title, Ori and the
Will o' the Wisp or whatever.
And they said, we don't really know. We don't have a control over it because we're not porting it. And it pricked my ears up, because I've often wondered if Google had a hand in doing any of the porting of some of this stuff. And if they didn't, why not? Because to be able to go out to any studio and say, if you've got any titles that you'd like on Stadia, we can take them in-house and do that for you. And you made a really good point, which was that there's nothing to suggest that they haven't got an array of indie studios,
companies who specialize in ports, that's
creating ports
with the Switch.
And then I said, actually, what if they've bought those companies? What if the guys they bought back in December,
Typhoon
Studios, what if the reason they bought Typhoon wasn't because of that game? In fact, we know it's not come to Stadia, and there's no sign of it.
Planet.
Right. But was actually to use them to port other people's titles to Stadia and be the genesis, the original basis of that service. Because if you're going to get the titles in more quickly than depending upon the original studio, to be able to say, just give us the code, just give us your code base, and we'll do the port for you, working hand in hand. You can test it, and that way we can speed up that process. So, I think that's one of the things they've put in place, and that's why they moved to take that studio on when I think it became clear that some of these games would slip, and they wouldn't get the volume of content out into the platform. So they've had to go out and just build the port system themselves and help other studios pull those games in.
I think, as I say, I seem to remember back in the day that there were certain companies that specialized in porting to the N64 when I worked in the games industry back then. So I imagine that they've either acquired an in-house facility to do it, or have a relationship with developers who kind of specialize in that. And then for the slightly mid-sized developers, they can go, we'll help you port the game. And I think that's a very kind of a valid point, and they're going to need to do that. As I say, if the trajectory was impacted by 3 major tentpole games all getting shoved down this end of the year, plus the impact of COVID. Quick shout out to Ray for the Hulk smash there.
What a
$5 Ray. Hulk smash. Yeah, very good. But the very fact that we have missed some of these big launches, you know what they say, anticipation makes the heart grow fonder. Anticipation makes things much more exciting, because, as I said, that means between now and the end of the year, we've got all those things that were delayed are coming over the next 3 months. So it is going to be an absolute bumper 3 months for Stadia. I think it's going to be a really exciting time.
Yeah, no, September is going to be a huge month. I mean, there's just this massive roll call of product coming to the platform. And of course, not just Stadia. I mean, we're about to see the proper launch of Game Pass Ultimate and xCloud. We're,
it's
now
the season. I told you we're gearing up to Christmas, aren't they?
Yeah. We're weeks away from the next gens hitting market. So, it's going to heat up across the board, and of course, rising tide benefits all. So, I think it's going to be this final quarter of the year is going to be an absolute bubbler.
Yeah. So we just look at Cloudy with a Chance of Games here, who conveniently said what games are coming to Stadia in September. It's just good to see them in a nice list. It just underscores, I think, how exciting just September is itself. So obviously tomorrow we've got all the pro games: Super Bomberman, Hello Neighbor, Hitman, Gunsport, Hitman 2 available to buy, and Marvel Avengers Deluxe Edition available to buy. That's all just tomorrow. Then NBA 2K and Marvel Avengers for Everyone 3 days later, September 4th. WWE Battlegrounds, Serious Sam 4, and Baldur's Gate, and in theory, sometime during September, Dead by Daylight. Now, you think Crowdplay may be launched at the next Connect. I think Crowdplay may be launched with Dead by Daylight.
And maybe they're both going to be...
Yeah, it could be coincide.
Same thing. Yeah. I mean, I think we're looking at Connect September.
Yeah.
And Stadia Source did a thing, a couple of weeks ago about there's been a massive influx of games being cleared on the PEGI ESRB accreditation.
It's all part of that. I told you that Christmas build up.
All building up.
Yeah. Now, one of the games on here is Baldur's Gate 3, which I don't really feel qualified to talk about this game, being not being part of the PC master race. But I appreciate
you've got as powerful a rig as I've got. You just don't play games.
It's content creation, playing games. I appreciate that this is a significant game amongst a large subset of PC gamers. So, what do you think the significance of Baldur's Gate being effectively exclusive or first on Stadia alongside PC? Do you think that is going to be quite significant? Because a lot of people talk about this game.
Yeah, they really do. It has a massive interest curve. There's 3 if you include Cyberpunk, but Cyberpunk's, it's kind of sits to the side because of obviously what Project Red have done in the past, CD Red with Witcher. But there's 2 games that are cultural, and therefore bringing them to Stadia brings that culture with them. One of them is Baldur's Gate, which of course, taps into the whole Dungeons and Dragons, even World of Warcraft to a degree. I know they're different games, but that whole Dungeons and Dragons RPG stuff, which is massive, absolutely huge. And the other one, which we've already mentioned, which is Marvel Avengers, which may or may not be an amazing game, but it represents this generation, their Star Wars, if you like. I know Star Wars is still huge.
No, I don't know what you mean.
But,
No, it is. It is.
You know
the
what I'm
Star
saying?
Wars of the current generation.
It really is. When you and I were kids, Star Wars, there was nothing else, and it just was all consuming. And Avengers is that in this generation. So anybody that was born in the 90s, for example, and younger, but predominantly in the 90s, Avengers is their culture. So those are two massive cultural icons coming to Stadia, which will only cement the bringing in of those cultures as well.
I can only comment on Baldur's Gate anecdotally, but even in the chat here, people are going, Carlos is saying BG3 the only game I'm really wanting for. Dave Widnall saying cannot wait BG3. DKS Stadia saying Baldur's Gate Showcase was very good, made me curious. It made me curious. I'm not Dungeons and Dragons kind of guy, but I'm curious about it. I love a dragon, says Dave Widnall. Great fan of Game of Thrones, obviously. But yeah, so I think Stadia Mania saying Baldur's Gate 3 is a big-ish deal for Stadia, bring more eyes onto the platform, plus show people the power, potential, price point at which Stadia has to offer. I mean, that's the advantage. It's they're bringing Baldur's Gate to Stadia because they can. That makes sense, because it will look great. It's a sort of game that lends itself well to the power of cloud gaming, I imagine, from what I understand of it. And I think it, wouldn't be the same if they try to squeeze it into the Nintendo Switch type of thing. The point is, it will look great on PC and it will look great on Stadia. And we know that it's effectively being optimized for Stadia because they're going to include crowd play and crowd choice and stuff that in it. So it's not as though it's just a straight port from the PC and then they're dumping it on Stadia. It's actually integrated and fine-tuned specifically for Stadia. So it's going to be a great advert for Stadia.
That I think as well, Clive, is a point worth exploring, because I haven't really thought about this before. But one of the great things about the platform, and I think when you think about it, one of the things that they've always said they want to do is they want you to go beyond just playing the game. They want to be able to bring you in from YouTube or wherever and be part of somebody else's game as well. And of course, the one thing about role-playing games or turn-by-turn based games, for example, in the Dragon's Den, is the fact, Dragon's Den, Dungeons and Dragons, is the fact that
I'm out.
I'm all in. I'm out. Is that you're bringing people in from all these various places to be involved in the game, and you can therefore see why the Baldur's Gate guys looked at Stadia and said that's actually a natural progression for us. It's not just about who's in the chat, who's in the party and playing in this game. It's the fact that anybody can now take part in this under the model of the expanded play that Google Stadia are trying to create. So actually, it is a fantastic fit, and even more so, I'd hasten to say, than any other cloud platform, because that's the thing that Stadia is going to make its mark on. I said to Duncan recently, there's no, look, xCloud, GeForce Now, I've got them all. I love them all. GeForce Now is amazing. I've been playing it all day long with Control. But where Google at the moment, they're all kind of in the same space. Give it 6 months, and Google are going to go forward and to the left and veer off. And it's going to be unique in the services that it brings. And you won't say anymore, oh, I didn't know whether to get GeForce or Stadia. It won't be, that won't be a choice. It'll be, well, there is only one platform where you can do this stuff. And if you're into
we touched
that
on it
kind
before,
of mass engagement,
where, so Project xCloud, you get to play games that have been developed specifically for the Xbox. So those games are limited to old school development, which is developing for a sort of static console. and you are just having the ability to play those games via the cloud, but games which are developed specifically for us, what I would call, I'm going to describe as a static platform. And GeForce Now, which we've, at the end of the day, is just a glorified virtual gaming PC. So again, all it is a service to access PC games that have been developed specifically for PC, a static system, and a way to access those. What Stadia is the true cloud gaming system on which the console that you're developing for lives in the cloud and is powered by the cloud. It is not just serving the game by the cloud and that's it. It is a living cloud-based console that you develop specifically for, and therefore its limitations are not as narrow as a PC, or not, and definitely not as narrow as a console. And that is the fundamental difference that you pointed out there. And of course, we won't see that until we get those special, dedicated games that have been built from the ground up, aimed specifically at the power of the cloud and not a static system. And I think you're right. That's the key thing. And that's where sets Stadia apart from other cloud services, which are just services to deliver existing games.
Yeah.
That's what Stadia is at the moment. But
yeah. And up until now, all the traditional gaming press have just applied traditional gaming mentality to comparing Stadia to the others. Oh, well, it's not going to be as good as because it hasn't got games. They've missed the point entirely. I don't think Stadia, I mean, Erin Hoffman-John said to me a few months ago how, well, she said in a coded way that some of the stuff that I'd been saying on my Stadia Talk stuff, which was along these lines, was on the money. She inferred, she said something like, thank you for your insight in our work, in what we're trying to do. And I think that's the key thing. They've never gone public about this because they've not been ready for it yet. But the clue is in Baldur's Gate 3.
Well, they've talked to developers specifically about the potential of Stadia, not as purely a platform to deliver your existing game, but some of the tools that exist in development which don't exist on a static console or a static PC development. The ability to, change the art style instantly, or what was the other thing they talked about? But this, I'm not technical, but the bus system of the servers, using all the servers at the different times and stuff like that, and all these things that you can't do.
Yeah, because they're keen. What they want is, the whole point really is that YouTube almost becomes. Oh, I just started a podcast in my ears, which I really don't want to be hearing. What you've essentially got with YouTube is almost it's almost a third-party controller in a sense. So you are able to control the dynamics of a game without being in the game or having the game installed on your system. That is, and if you've got a dice-based kind of chance-based game, for example, it's manna from heaven to be able to do that stuff. And they are absolutely working on other titles of their own that will no doubt have functionality features along those lines. But I think that's going to be one of the things that sets them apart. Is when you see a new made for Stadia. There's one we've not seen yet.
Made for Stadia.
For Stadia. When you see that, it's going to be like nothing you can play anywhere else, because you can reach an audience, you can do things with an audience that you can't do with any other games or any other game platform, whether it be cloud-based or hardware-based. So I'm looking forward to made for Stadia, because that's going to be the differentiator.
So Rico in chat saying you both bang on correct. And the Daft Tux says, still feel Stadia needs that Halo application skeptical it'll be Baldur's Gate 3. Yeah, it's not. I think that's just a sort of an early implementation. SIG on Star Citizen aren't there yet on server meshing and iCache. Hope I'm wrong. And he goes on to say, this is why I'm fascinated by what SIG are doing with Star Citizen. I hope Stadia have games that are really designed for those multi-instance servers, which is what we're touching on. So yeah, totally made for Stadia. He finishes off very good. Yeah. So there
it's going to be the key. That will be the key one.
Yeah,
and we're not going to see it this year.
No,
but I'm absolutely convinced we'll see it by the summer of next year.
Yeah, that early, possibly, because they do say they could speed up the development process.
Yeah. I'm not talking about cyberpunk scale, but it doesn't have to be. Look at Outcasters. It's a relative. I mean, that's made for Stadia for a start.
Yeah,
and it's a relatively small game in its remit. It's kind of Fall Guys-ish, like up to 8 players, but it does have some of the unique features that Stadia can bring baked in, and some that they've yet to announce. They're keeping that one relatively tight-lipped.
XV says, designing for cloud also has major benefits for publishers. A publisher could sell portions of the game to other developers, i.e. grid driving engine in GTA 6, etc.
Yeah.
That's a left field thought there that I'd not really thought about, but that's...
Yeah, no, I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think
it's a good shout.
Yeah. The other thing, of course, and we see it, oddly enough, and I've mentioned it before, in Flight Simulator, in which they integrated other aspects of Microsoft family in the game in order to, say, for instance, the maps and the rendering and stuff like that. So they drew in resources from the non-gaming side of Microsoft to sort of help power Microsoft Flight Simulator. So, you imagine, I've said it before, imagine him calling in the benefits of Google Earth or something like that into a mass game of some sort, or their intelligent visual recognizing software that they have and stuff like that. So other aspects of Google that could be drawn upon.
They of course they have, every one of us that uses the internet, it's impossible to not in some way, shape or form be catalogued by Google. So each one of us has a profile somewhere, anonymized, no doubt. But you could imagine, and I kind of touched on this a little bit at the end of my recent video about the history of Stadia. And, I imagined a future world where they have all that data that they can bring to bear on a personalized game. So they know the kinds of things that we like in our lives, the places we've been, the people that we interact with, the stuff that we buy, and they're able to, in some way, adapt and, evolve a game around those things, so it becomes very personal to us.
Well, there's that scale of it, but there's even the kind of current scale of it that exists, which we see in Netflix. And the old Amazon algorithm are like, you like this, you might like that. But Netflix, when they, as I understand it, when they're commissioning new programs or new films exclusive for Netflix, they're using the data they've collected through the fact that everybody's streaming the content. They know what stars people like. They know what sort of subject matter they like. So they can commission things specifically based on the data. Now, there's a sort of creative issue about that, in terms of, from an artistic point of view, and it becomes sort of self-fulfilling, and you kind of lose cultural identity through that. But it's exactly that you get to the point where Google will have enough data about people and their gaming habits to go, right, people like this kind of game. Let's double down on that and give more of that, or that more of style on a real precise level. So you're going to get that Amazon algorithm, you like this, you might also like this, but they'll also make decisions on the games they develop based on the data and the streams that people are doing as well. So that's already exists. That already exists there.
Yeah. And this is why I think partly why one of the things that Google said in the past was that they keep talking about these massive games with 1,000 players that has this kind of endless stream of content. And you could see how if they match the data that they have on each of those players with that content, it can almost develop on the fly in terms of delivering stuff that they know we're going to like because they know this, they know what drives us.
Yeah. Just so Carlos here says, and I'm just touching on this now because we're actually going to touch on this a bit later, Carlos, but you say becoming a platform and a service, once they get more publishers or bring their communities over, i.e. Uplay Plus, will also bring something that other consoles don't have. And we're going to touch on that a bit later, Carlos, but very good point. Dave says here, look at the things they've shown to us at I/O, like making, the artificial intelligence making calls for you, and that natural conversation that fool people at the other end of the call. Yeah. So I've talked about the ability to get NPCs to chat to you in an intelligent way, in a way that current NPCs have a route, sort of a tree of conversations that they could possibly select. So it's going to be the same thing, one of 5 choices. Yeah. But of course, with AI machine learning, the NPCs can have almost intelligence and respond to you on a much more infinite way, or not maybe infinite, but on a much more varied way than just having 5 choices of response that they might have. So that's another thing. And I think that's what Dave is touching on.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And also don't forget what they are already, or what we will be getting shortly, is the manual version of that, which is the audience watching you stream, dictating and deciding what the pathway you take in a game.
Yeah.
It's a little bit like those books when we were kids, Clive. Where,
go to page 45.
Yeah. And it was a completely new story.
Yeah.
Oh, I love
adventure
those
games
books.
in a book.
Yeah. Only here, the public are telling us which page to go to.
Yeah.
So we're starting off on a journey in a game, and we don't know because it's almost procedural, but in a manual way, because the people watching, as we'll see with Baldur's Gate 3, I mean, they're literally getting to weight the choice on the dice to dictate whether the next move you make is one that you're comfortable with and you could actually do, you've got the skills for, or it puts you in a really hard place. So that has never been seen before that I'm aware of in gaming. It's going to be a completely new experience and just the tip of the iceberg in terms of what these guys have got up their sleeves.
Yeah. I mean, we don't know, but I think the potential is there. And so I think it's fair enough to speculate about these things. DK said, can I get off topic a bit and show how great Google is? They calculated the impact of COVID-specific rules in a village, is that meant to be? And made see how many people stayed at home, didn't contact. So 300 patients in that village by making rules. I'm not sure. It amazed me. Are you saying that they did some sort of complex calculation and then
track and trace
rules?
They came up with a kind of track and trace application, but it was using predictive technology to kind of determine who in a community would potentially
are more likely to get it,
to be in contact with, and so on. And that, that all of that stuff. I mean, we specifically live in a world where we play at those experiences. Google obviously is a vast alphabet, it's a vast outfit. Forwarding for all the things that they do that we may not be comfortable with. They've also done some amazing stuff to forward, the sort of sciences and medicine and art as well. So they've kind of paid back. They've got a good yin yang thing going on.
So as I say, we don't know that, but based on the knowledge we have, it's a good bet that that's the direction Stadia is going to take in development. And so I'm coming to a slightly more controversial perspective now. Oh yeah, I'm going to go there. So, as I've told you, I've spoken to Rock about this before, but ill-informed or unqualified statements annoy me. Get my goat. And as with any community of fans, whether it's console community, football teams, the amount of nonsense I read really gets up my nose. However, I think it was Dom from Stadia Source when it was on their show. I think it was Dom pointed out that none of us actually know what Stadia is doing or trying to do from a marketing or their kind of overall annual, the launch across the year perspective. And that's a very valid point. We don't know. But we hope and assume that Phil Harrison, Shannon Studstill, and Jade Raymond know what they are doing. Why wouldn't they? With the combined gaming industry knowledge and experience they have. When you look at their resume, that's a stellar team. Stadia is in a safe pair of hands. No, safe hands, generally, safe hands. So we know that you don't employ those sort of people. That's like a dream team. You just look at the resume, it's a dream team, hands down, that's the facts. But there are plenty of Twitter twits, Kel Surprise, and Facebook boomers, who knew, who seem to think occasionally, again, I don't want to be one of these people who go, everybody says, but again, it's in that filter that I see a sort of certain negativity that occurs. And it's not so much the negativity that gets me, but it's the lack of qualification for that negativity, the lack of facts or background information. So people have sort of sometimes may have commented on me that I may be harsh on people who are negative or whatever, or you can't be negative in a Stadia forum or something like that because everybody jumps on you and stuff like that. For me personally, it is not the negativity that is the issue, but it is the lack of qualification backing up the statement. It's, I read somewhere, or apparently, or it's just ill-informed. So going back to what Dom said about nobody actually knows, and that is a valid point, they do. There are, therefore we have to speculate. And what I see, as I say, is that sometimes you get the impression of the odd, Twitter and Facebook feed. And again, it's the algorithm spewing it up in my face, the same on YouTube. That's why we get Yongyi videos recommended for me. Why? Well, not anymore because I unsubscribed, but because of that very reason, it just got my goat and, eventually got to turn things off. But if you keep turning all the things off that annoy you, you get into your own sort of bubble. That's always the danger of it. It looks like a self-reaffirming bubble. But the point is, but you seem to, a few people in the Stadia community who the slightest thing and they go off thinking the whole of the Stadia world has gone to pot. And they're like a bunch of chicken littles. The Stadia sky is falling in. The Stadia sky is falling in. And Rock, because I've gone on about it before to you, offline as it were, it does my head in. And I know I should ignore it. But I guess my point is, I would argue that some perspectives, because another point I was called up upon was that, everybody has a right of an opinion and all that kind of stuff, is my view. I would argue that some perspectives or assumptions are more, in a world where we don't actually know, some perspectives or assumptions are more valid than others because they come with relevant experience or knowledge, like a sports pundit. They may not know what is going on behind the scenes of a football club or your favorite baseball club or whatever it is, but they do have the knowledge and experience of the game to at least hazard a pretty decent guess on what is going on. So one of the reasons you're on my show, for instance, today, and that we talk about stuff, and you get invited on other shows, for instance, is you run your own business. You've done it for at least 20 years.
33, I think.
33 years. And not only that.
And loose change.
Yeah, not only that, you were effectively an early pioneer in the sort of web consultancy services industry, you know, when web was just starting up as a thing as well. And then from my perspective, I've worked in the media industry for, I was going to say, I've written here 20 years, but you're right. It's 30 years. And in television, in film, and in the games business itself. So 6 of them actually in the games business. I've worked for publishers, and I work for developers as well. And I work for a publisher stroke developer. And I've traveled the world. I'm not sort of brag or anything like here. I'm just trying to qualify the point of this show and the conversation that we're having here. I've traveled the world. I've met with Sony. I've met with EA. I've met with Ubisoft. I've met with THQ. I've met with Nintendo and developers, a lot of major British developers, American developers. Exactly. Loads and loads and loads. Now, the point of pundits, that's what we are, effectively, we're here just to fill that void. But does it matter? Is it just good that there's a hunger for Stadia info by Stadia fans? And are shows like this just sort of encouraging that hunger or satiating it? That is the question of debate.
So I think the key thing is emotion, isn't it? What people are driven by day in, day out is emotion. And if you're a gamer, you're probably more driven by emotions than most ordinary people are in any case. So if our thing was politics, for example, you probably wouldn't get the same, you may do, but you'd probably get a little less emotion and a little more pragmatism. But we're in a world that is all about
quite polarized now, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. But we're in a world that is dopamine driven. It's emotion hits, and therefore it can be more fun with a small f to actually hit something and get an emotional rise out of it. And that is unfortunate. You know,
didn't I touch on that negativity thing? We respond to negativity. I did a thing on it before. Weeks ago.
Absolutely, we do.
More than positivity.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. And there are reasons for that. It all goes back to, my friends and family know me for this, but I'm always saying to people, and it's the same with, you know, if you want to know why a dog does something, you have to think of why a wolf does something. If you want to know why humans do something, you have to think about why we would have done something like this in our caveman type state, because we're just a hop, skip, and a jump from that space. So if somebody says something really negative, it's akin to saying there's a lion over the hill. And if you don't run, the lion's going to eat you. And people don't stop to think. They don't stop to question. They run with that motif because it's a survival thing. And I know that's really trite and simplistic, but that's what you see in any community like this. And you'll see alphas develop in any community. You'll see, you know, the different states that you will see in any growing community will happen in a community like ours as well. But it all comes down to that primitive emotional state. The thing with yourself, Clive, is that you're obviously you have a trained legal background, so it's ingrained in you to look for the facts, to research, to back up statements that you make, because your entire career is based on doing that. Well, most people don't even know where to start. So, you know, it's so much easier for them to take a comment that somebody else has made, albeit possibly reshaped to fit their thinking, and just pop it out there and walk away from it. And then it becomes like Chinese whispers or dominoes, and the whole thing just becomes flying. So I think shows like this one, shows like Eddie and Chase do, you know, MM2K, Project Storm, these guys who actually do try to bring some level of insight and wisdom to these points are really important. We've said before, and I'm guilty of this to a degree, it's very easy to put a show on where you just literally read the news. But it
serves a purpose. I think that's
it
important.
serves a purpose. I try and do it in an entertaining way, but I do appreciate that there are 1,001 shows like that now. So doing something like what we're doing here tonight, where we're trying to bring a little bit more of our shared wisdom and experiences to bear on some of that stuff. I don't have the training and the background that you have, but I do have a sixth sense. A business sixth sense.
You've got that business sixth sense, running a business. Knowing, that all the kind of different aspects of the business, the marketing side, what you need to do, and all that kind of stuff.
You just know stuff. I mean, I don't know. People don't necessarily know this, but I didn't go to college or university. I'm very ill-educated. My experiences really are school of hard knocks stuff. It's when you've been in business for the amount of time that I've been in business, it becomes your DNA. It becomes and you just know that companies don't do things in the same way that people that maybe don't have those experiences believe that they will, or that they believe that they do. And that's kind of what I try and bring to bear when we discuss these things. But I do think as well, what people don't tend to bring to the Stadia discussion is a little bit of the left field stuff that we've seen in chat tonight. And I think that's the bit that I really want people to start to think, dream it. What could they do with this technology, and kind of leave behind the consoles and the PCs and the hardware and the old school gaming that we've all been growing up with, because what Google are trying to do is take it off in a completely different direction, which may or may not be comfortable.
Think beyond the now. That's what I always think about Stadia. It's not, and don't think from the old school way of doing things in gaming and stuff. And I've been quite pleased with the chat. Well done, chat. You've done very well. There's been some great statements in chat that kind of made me think and stuff here. I just always whizzing by so quick now. This chat. 1 second.
What we're trying to achieve with this show is, we want to have more deep thinking, more detailed consideration about some of this stuff, with Clive's analytical, research-driven mind, and my kind of creative thinking.
You've got that. It's that entrepreneurial aspect to you, I think, that brings that creative thinking about, okay, where can we take this, and that kind of stuff, which is sort of tuned through that kind of business approach that you have, running your own business. So Jerry Lennon says, I showcased Stadia my 17-year-old nephew. He was already aware of it, had not tried it. He was amazed it actually worked. Yeah, we hear that all the time. I mean, that's quite right. He assumed it was crap from what you're seeing on YouTube. Exactly. Eventually, those YouTube, they'll never come back and apologize, but they'll just be forgotten history. And, when people come to Stadia and accept it, like we say, people, the general mass, come to Stadia and accept it, which I imagine they will eventually, it'll just be, oh, yeah, it's Stadia, isn't it? Stadia, like, take it all for granted. Forget all this history and the first year and all that kind of stuff.
We were having the same conversations around Spotify and Netflix and probably even Gmail. These sort of these are people that are forging a path forwards, and now we take it all for granted. But when they kicked off, we didn't. When they were starting, we were laughing at them.
So exactly, Jerry Lennon says here, problem is, talking about his 17-year-old nephew here, he still won't get it because of peer pressure from his friends. And it's exactly that. Eventually, they'll go, what, you haven't got Stadia? What's wrong with you? That'll, like everybody says, Netflix and chill is a modern day terminology. It's a thing. It's part of the language. It's like people just say, oh, I'm in watching Netflix. You know what I mean? It's like a thing. And eventually you see, it never used to be, Netflix was this obscure kind of down streaming thing that people weren't sure about 10 years ago or whatever it was, 7 years ago. But now it's like just part of the common language.
And also, I think, again, Stadia is never going to compete head on, as we've already said, with Xbox or even potentially with Sony, because they've got years of games built up in that traditional sense, but they never came to the market with that as their driver.
Yeah.
They came to the market to take it off on a different tangent, a completely different direction, the kind of thing that somebody like Google and even people like Facebook, to be fair, as well, they're just starting to get into the cloud gaming world, and they will, I absolutely promise you, they will not be delivering an Xbox X Cloud or a PlayStation Now. I don't know about Amazon so much. I'm not quite sure yet about those guys.
But they've got the potential for it.
They have the potential to do it. But these are people that think beyond. They don't think about next
week.
You have
futurologists
10
working
weeks ago.
For them, and they've got to make
everything's
big
about the future. Yeah.
So Dark Tux,
data driven.
Yeah. Touch on it here. He says that PC's got 30 years background to it, PlayStation 25 years, Xbox 15 years, games, catalogs, and system software. Exactly. They have that massive advantage. Stadia is 9 months old. Holt says, I'm trying to get my 7-year-old nephew to get FIFA on Stadia, but he's so focused on PS5. Exactly. I think the games will help bring the people. If I could play, if Overwatch was cross-play on Stadia, then the fact that my son doesn't have an Xbox at his mum's house, I go, well, just play it on Stadia. That would be a thing. Fortnite, he plays with his mates. That'd be a thing. Destiny, if it was cross-play, that would be a thing for him. So once the games start coming, then it becomes an option or your only option, then people will sort of get into it. And then this kind of idea of Stadia, oh, what's that? Will go, because it becomes an absolute valid option for people who want to play these big games and may not, have access to the Xbox or PlayStation.
In a sense, though, Clive, don't you think, again, thinking about Stadia as a different kind of gaming platform, wouldn't it, if we suddenly got Fortnite or Overwatch or Hyperscape or any of the big, massive games that you associate with the consoles and the PCs, if we suddenly got one of those, for me, it would feel like we've lured meat eaters into a vegetarian restaurant.
Yeah.
It's like we're dangling a sausage to get you in, but when you come in, you realize, oh, hang on, they don't actually sell meat here, because I don't think I don't ever think Stadia intended to appeal to that audience, and that's the thing. I think maybe one of the reasons we're not seeing Fortnite or Overwatch or anything else is because it isn't ultimately what they want to develop. They want to appeal to a different audience type. One that is being designed and developed by them, maybe.
I think it's a bit of a mixed ecology, really. I think that those games would be useful in establishing credibility to the system in the short term, so that then it gives them the foundations to build out to the future that we've discussed. So there is, the very fact that we've got FIFA coming, and Madden and all the big AAAs and the Cyberpunks, the games that are in the casual gamers conversation, I think give validity to Stadia and demonstrate, and then it makes the conversation they have with publishers and developers easier, and gives them the power and the scope to really do what they want to do, which then makes them even more appealing to the publishers and developers, because again, look what you can do, which we prove because we've got the player base, etc., etc.
Yeah, and we also have to be careful not to kind of get the pitchforks and the torches out, because they're not doing what we want them to do to validate what we've purchased.
Yeah.
I think it's important that we're not, we shouldn't take it personally when Ying Yong, or whatever the guy's name is,
Yong
Ye, and the two idiots in Australia, we shouldn't take it personally. They are just creating the kind of content that generates revenue for them.
Yeah.
We are on a rocket ship to Mars. They're still running around the Earth on a Ford Capri.
Yeah.
Let them do their thing.
Yeah.
We're off to new
See you
heights.
later. Yeah.
Yeah, we're going to places, you know, I mean, I look at it like when old Elon Musk first bought into Tesla, and it was a company that was basically making electric cars that looked like petrol-driven cars.
Yeah.
They just looked the same. They were sporty-looking cars, the Rio,
Yeah.
but they wasn't anything that differentiated them as electric vehicles. And now you look at Tesla, and you know they're designing that weird pickup truck and stuff that is, you know, they're trying to push the envelope. And I think these guys are looking to do the same thing in the gaming platform.
Because they need to push envelope because it's being a pioneer. So you've got to do something that breaks the mold, disrupts the market. And one way to do that is to do something extraordinary or something, you know, that people go, you can't do that. But he's like a one-man vision. He goes, I can do it because I'll pay for it. I want to go to Mars. What? Yeah, I'm going to go to Mars.
Mate. He's totally on the spectrum.
Yeah.
The people like that I've ever met in my life are just not quite the
Yeah.
full shilling, as my mum would say. But you know, going back to what you'd originally, the original question, which was about you know, the kind of the community and the way they handle this stuff. Look, it is going to be uncomfortable for some people who bought into Stadia wanting it to be an alternative to traditional consoles. I totally get that, and I totally get that they may want to bail out at this point. The next gens are coming up. GeForce Now is looking amazing. I mean, I as I've said, I've been playing some of my PC Steam games on GeForce Now, and it's looking amazing. It's really high quality. And if that's what you've been waiting for, and we're hoping Stadia would be, it is there for you. It is absolutely there for you.
Yeah.
But don't beat Stadia up for not being that, because I don't think it ever intended to be.
Resurrected says here, we need all types of games for a healthy, attractive platform. Oh, yes, the point he said before, sorry. I think the reason we don't have certain games is not on Google's side, it's because publishers want a bigger audience. And that's absolutely right, of course. We've touched on it, and the CEO of Fortnite's touched on it. And there's no denying it, and it's just facts. The player base is significantly smaller than a global player base because it's only in 14 countries. But Google know it's only in 14 countries. So it's not as though they're going to go to Epic and go, oh, they know that their player base is small. It's not a surprise to Phil Harrison, you know, Shannon Studstill and Jade Raidman. It's not a surprise. They know the size of their audience. They know the level of games they can get on. They've done an amazing job getting the games they have got on, and those publishers are come on because of the relationships that the Stadia team have built with them on the basis of the future, not now. You know, on the basis they're going to make an absolute shed load. Yes, it's another way to exploit their IP via Stadia, but they know they're not going to make a shed load now, but they've seen Stadia's plans under an NDA. I imagine, to qualify it, I am speculating, they have seen Stadia's plans for the rollout, so they know the potential. Now, if you've got a games as a service like a Fortnite or even an Apex to a certain degree, then you want that audience now. And, you know, and it's not quite there. And as the CEO of Epic said, you know, they've got to service 7 different platforms just to keep the thing going on a regular basis. It's a lot of investment for a player base, you know, is relatively small because it's only in 14 countries. When, as I pointed out, the Xbox Gold Live is in 40 countries. And, you know, the systems are significantly, you know, there are 50 million, whatever. Although I did see a report, just to touch very quickly, questioning why there are not that many Xbox Games Pass sold or subs. 10 million seems quite a lot to me. But relative to the number of Xboxes in the world, this article was questioning why isn't everybody subbed? like 10 million out of 50 million seems quite low. Although what the article erroneously didn't point out or missed is that Games Pass, I don't think, is in every territory that Xbox is in. So, well, certainly the Project X Cloud isn't anyway. But anyway, we're not going to go into that. But it's just an interesting point that the take up of the subs for a all-you-can-game subscription service isn't great when you compare to the actual base of 50 million Xboxes. And it's interesting that maybe it's not the model, because this article was going on about, maybe it's not the business model that gamers want. Some gamers maybe just want to buy 3 or 4 games and that's it, and know that if you get into a game, it's not going to fall off the system, which is a problem with games.
And the old 80-20 rule applies every single time. Out of the 100, probably only 20 of us want or are quite comfortable in purchasing an $8.99, $10 a month subscription. The other 80% are just happy buying the odd game.
Yeah.
My 2 girls have got, I set them up with Stadia accounts, and they've got a couple of games that they bought. They allowed their pro subs to expire, and they're quite happy with that. There's 1 or 2 games that they want. They don't play often enough to justify them spending that amount of money per month. And
which is, the more I think about it, I think Xbox. It's a good. It is, interesting enough, it's a good business model that Stadia have, and a lot of people, a lot of gaming people or press. Again, I'm saying a lot. I'm doing exactly the thing that annoys me. There are some pieces or narrative in the gaming press that says, well, Stadia works and it's really cool, but the problem is the business model. And ironically enough, especially reading this piece that I read recently about the Xbox Games Pass, maybe the business model is not a problem, because it reflects the different ways people like to consume their games. Some just have 2 or 3 games that they concentrate on throughout the year, and they're quite happy with that, and they don't want a subscription base. And others want the choice that a subscription base of having 40 odd games that are currently on the system, well, if you subscribe in the beginning, that you'd currently have, they like that option. And as we've discussed here, it's not an alien business model. The 2 major TV and film streaming services use the 2 different business models. Amazon give you the option to buy a film or rent a film and to subscribe and to subscribe. So they have some games which are available, some films and TV stuff, which is Prime, and others which are not, but you could still access them. And that, to me, is a great business model. So it kind of amuses me that this idea, whenever I read, oh yeah, but Stadia Tech works really well, but the problem is the business model. I'm thinking, why don't you tell Amazon that? Because it seems to work pretty well. And as a business model, it works better if the product costs more money, if you think about it, because you think, well, actually, I only want 3 games. I don't, like loads of films, so I'll just buy those 3 games. Which
covered on both sides.
Yeah. Which brings me, I'm going to jump over the casual gamer question that I had in the notes, and we're going to go to hot off the press today. So this actually this conversation leads nicely on, especially the Amazon example. Hot off the press today is in 9 to 5 Google. They do another APK unpacking, and in it they're anticipating that Uplay Plus looks like it's being prepped in the background, ready for launch. Again, we don't know when this will be, and it's no indication that it's going to be sooner or later. But the fact that they're putting it in the code now, basically there's some text in the APK giving you the option saying Ubisoft Uplay Plus subscription service, Ubisoft Uplay Plus subscription service, Uplay Plus games. Anyway, so it's 2 text strings that are in the APK that they put in the recent Stadia that was unpacked by 9 to 5. So, touching on that, my question is here for discussion is maybe, and interesting enough, sorry, who was it else? Somebody mentioned this in chat earlier as well. So apology if I didn't spot it earlier, or if I did and didn't bring it in here. But could Uplay Plus just be one of many potential existing subscription services that Stadia could effectively host or provide in a way that the consoles won't or can't? So could we see, like, if Uplay Plus is a real success, could we see an EA Play?
You certainly could. And in a way, I mean, that's what GeForce are doing, aren't they? With both Steam and Epic, they're essentially saying, here's some tech, and we're opening it up to you. You guys sell the games, and we'll make it cloud-based. So you could absolutely see that. The only thorn in my side on that one is the fact that they are also offering their own service. So we know that because they have a cloud. They have a separate cloud service division. So anybody could go to them, to Google, and buy into that infrastructure and deliver their own cloud gaming-based service if they wanted to. So you have to think about what would the advantages be if you were kind of going to come up and sit in the same space as Stadia and Uplay Plus and others. What would be the advantage to those outfits? Because they are essentially, they could just do that themselves. They could just say to Google, we want your infrastructure, we love your infrastructure, and we're prepared to give you a percentage of sales plus. And we know, I forget who it is now, they did a deal with EA, did they not? Where they are providing a networking infrastructure for them independently. So, that kind of could happen. My personal opinion is, without absolutely zero fact behind it, is that what we will see is Uplay Plus bundled in with the Pro subscription in some way, either completely free. And you and I, Clive, have worked out the mechanics of how that could happen on a commercial basis and actually benefit everybody. And the way it works, guys, is that, as with any business like this that has a subscription, there is a cost of acquisition.
Yeah.
You've seen it yourselves. When you get insurance for your car and they give you the absolute best deal, because they know how much it costs to purchase you as a customer, and they're prepared to pass that
discount
cost on to you
to that level,
in that first year,
because you're going to forget to renew with someone else.
And so the first year of our subscription is absolutely meaningless to Google, because all of that money has gone is a cost of acquisition, and they're turning it back around in terms of what they're offering us. So for them to turn around and say, oh, sorry about that. That was Google over there telling me something. So for them to turn around and say, for example, we think cost of acquisition on a Google Stadia customer is $100 per year on argument. Therefore, we'll give that $100 to Ubisoft, and it will attract in. We're acquiring a whole slew of new customers based on giving them this for 6 months or 12 months or what have you. So that can work as a model. And you can't look at it and say, well, how can they possibly build a business on $8.99? They're not. They are acquiring their customer base. And some businesses like Amazon or Spotify have yet to make an official profit, because they are acquiring the future business all the time. And that's essentially what these guys are doing.
It's exactly what Netflix does. They calculate things on the cost of acquisition, which is basically how much does it cost to get that subscriber on the basis that they will be retained for a number of years, and therefore that's the sort of income they'll get. So that first initial bit, and then they just reinvest that money to keep building up some subscribers and keep borrowing money and so on. So the value is, the company of Netflix is based on the potential subscribers, not on the money they have now, because they've got to spend all that money straight away. So they never have any money, constantly doubling down and reinvesting that money constantly. And there's no kind of, they're not cash rich.
No. They need to keep a Stadia subscriber subscribing for 2 years.
Yeah.
They will lose you. If they lose you within a year, they were never going to keep you.
Yeah.
If they can keep you paying it for 2 years, they probably got you for a lot longer.
Yeah.
So they will invest in 2 years, giving us amazing content, signing us up to all sorts of amazing deals, at which we'll just go, how the hell are they affording to do this? Well, they're doing it because
but it's effectively marketing money, isn't it?
Yeah, it's exactly
think about
that.
the discounts,
cost of marketing.
The cost of marketing, yeah.
100%. So, that's why I personally believe that Uplay Plus is going to be, it is a cost of acquisition for potentially 6 months, maybe longer.
Yeah. And I think
will go to Ubisoft.
I also think that the potential of if EA or maybe other publishers, even to say, okay, for 2 years, we'll try it out, because bear in mind, these are not, unlike GeForce Now, it's not. You are effectively with GeForce Now cannibalizing other sales of the PC product, because it's the same product. It's exactly the same game that you would buy through Steam or you buy separately and play on GeForce Now. It's the PC version of the game.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas with Stadia, the publisher would have had to develop a Stadia specific version of that game. So no one else, they can't sell it anywhere else. They can sell the game, but not the Stadia version. So it actually creates another revenue stream. Whereas just making the PC version available on GeForce Now or via Shadow, all you're doing is cannibalizing your existing PC sales, other than perhaps those that don't have a PC gaming rig, which is, is a market, and which is, again, Stadia's selling point, giving the chance for people to play games who don't have a PC gaming rig. But they are ported to Stadia, so it's the only place you could access that game. So if Stadia builds up its audience, as you say, it gives the opportunity of Uplay Plus to get in a new set of subscribers who perhaps wouldn't have subscribed to Uplay Plus because they didn't have a gaming rig or didn't have a PC or didn't know what GeForce Now was. So I think there is an added benefit for the Uplay Plus. I do think, however, as we've seen in the TV industry, where, it was dominated by two key people, Amazon, so the streaming services delivering films and TV via the cloud, dominated by Amazon and Netflix. And then people have looked at it and seen the potential of the business if you get it right, like Netflix, and realize, wait a minute, we've got all this IP ourselves and we're just licensing it to Netflix and Amazon, where actually, if we had enough money and infrastructure, we could set up our own streaming service. For example, Disney Plus, who are perhaps the prime example of that, because they've got the biggest IPs in the world and have now, as the licenses to Netflix and Amazon come to an end, have not renewed those licenses, kept them for themselves, and we see, Disney Plus competing. And it's not just Disney Plus, you've got HBO Plus and all the different ones. Warner Brothers are doing it, Universal are doing it, and now you're getting a fractured sort of cloud streaming market. So we could get to a point if games follow the TV market, which is what we imagine it will do, you could get a system where there are lots of cloud gaming services, the publishers offering their own kind of versions of it. But it is a risk, and it does require a lot of infrastructure or partnership with a major cloud company. And a way of testing that might be to do limited licenses with Stadia to try it out, to see what the appetite is for, or equally GeForce Now, to see what the appetite is. And then if it's sort of proven that the market is there for EA Play on a cloud-based system, whether it's via Stadia or GeForce Now, then they might go, right, let's partner with Amazon Cloud Services, Salesforce, Cloudflare, whoever it is, Google, let's partner with them and build out our own, Microsoft Azure, build out our own service.
Yeah, and I also think as well, we keep talking as if people will only buy into one. Well, of course, if you've got Netflix or
Netflix,
if you've got Amazon, you've
Disney.
probably got Netflix.
Yeah.
You've probably invested in Disney. You possibly have Apple TV because you've got an iPhone.
Yeah.
I gave it away for a year. And the magic number is about $5.
Yeah.
So if you can keep the sub to around 5, people will have multiple.
20 quid a month. You've got four subscription services ticking away. Yeah, it's true. I would never thought, why would I want to, I thought Amazon Prime because I get free postage. But, they do good stuff. Netflix because, it's Netflix. Disney Plus because we were in lockdown and I thought, well, how do I keep the kids entertained? And I've forgotten to unsubscribe and The Mandalorian. I wanted to watch that.
Yeah.
And when the time I get round to want to unsubscribe from Disney Plus, The Mandalorian 2 will be on. So, soon it becomes the norm where you say we've got 3 or 4 subscription services. And nobody questions of it.
Keep it in that magic space. So GeForce, GeForce is roughly 5. xCloud game on the PC up until now, Game Pass has been about 5. Once they go 10, 15, people start to go, I can only really afford one. Because it goes over the magic number.
In their head, You don't think about the fact that you've got 5 already.
5 is not an issue. So I'll have that.
But
once you go there.
I think this is what people don't realize about, cloud gaming. In 10 years, we'll be in the exact same position with the TVs and cable companies. Now it's about having, 3, 4 subscriptions to the key sort of cloud streaming services, on-demand services, Netflix and so on. It's going to be the same with gaming. And people that go now, cloud gaming, what's the point of that? It never works. It's like, I can see in 5 years, it'll be like, the people look like Luddites. Well, they look like Luddites to me now, but they will be, you look back and you just say, what a Luddite you were. Look at it. It's just the norm.
When you think you can have right now, I think Duncan worked it out, for about $25, you can have just about every cloud gaming setup that there currently exists. Not that you would, because some of them do double up. But you could certainly have, you can get your Steam games, you can get your Xbox games, you can get your PlayStation games, and you can get your Stadia magic for about $25 a month. So, that's when you think about it, compared to traditionally, we'd all be happily spending, 50. Serious gamers were spending $50, $60 a month on one big game, twice that on a couple of games. So when you look at it from that perspective, it actually works in your favor as a gamer.
Dave Handley says here, Stadia app on Sky Q boxes. I think that's a very valid point. We're going to see Stadia on Android TVs. And there are already some game services apps on the smart TV. I don't know how they work. They look pretty shonky. But yes, you could start seeing again in maybe 3 to 5 years that gaming apps. I mean, proper gaming apps. So what I mean by that is not the ones that are currently there, but Stadia or even GeForce Now on the TV, and it become the norm where you go, do you pick up the remote or do you pick up your controller? Do I want to watch something or do I want to play something?
So you
just hit smart.
You're in the media business, Clive. How does that model work for Sky having Netflix on the box?
Well, it's a bundle, isn't it? They
Are they
want
getting a
you.
percentage of that subscription?
Yeah, so it's a sort of a two-way system, isn't it? Because it just makes it. You see it with Virgin, you see it with, like I've said before, like if you are in the UK, this relates to the UK, but if you're Virgin Media or Sky on offering a TV package, because they're not. I mean, Sky do make TV. They're not selling you a channel. They're selling you a package of entertainment. And so you want on that package the most popular forms. So say if you're creating a smart TV, it's the same. The broadcasters and the on-demand service companies negotiate to make sure they're on those smart TVs. But equally, if you're a smart TV manufacturer, you want to make sure in the UK, especially, you've got BBC iPlayer. Globally, you've got Netflix, you've got Amazon on your TV, because that's what people expect. So I think the thing with Sky is they want people to it's that subscription thing. They want people to subscribe to Sky, and the way to do it is not just say we're Sky Television and we've got these programs. It's to say we'll provide you with broadband, Sky Television, the sports channels, Netflix, YouTube, all these other things that people expect to see in one handy box. So you pay for the convenience of having it all on one big box. We'll deliver that package to you in a good value. And they'll do a deal with Netflix to say, either, they have it on the thing at a discounted rate, and the money just goes to, some of the revenue goes straight to Netflix, or some other kind of model. But you want a package to offer people, and that's what Virgin Media does, and exactly what Sky does.
So on that basis, you could envisage, I could envisage a Stadia embedded on a Sky Q box. And just for those of you that aren't in the UK, Sky is the main satellite broadcaster in the UK, owned by Mr. Murdoch. Although I think have they now divested themselves of all their interest? I know Sky News they were selling off.
I think the Sky News was sold off.
Yeah. So in essence, they, as Clive says, in order to compete with televisions that now come with all this, with the out the box smart TVs, they've had to ensure that they've got those there. So I could see that being the case with Stadia. I also think, if you think again about the convenience, if you look at the user interface of Sky Q, for example, it's very much in the sort of YouTube content digesting mode.
It collates what they try to
Yes.
do. I mean, from what I've told, I don't have it, but having talked about it at work and stuff, for different reasons, had talks on it, is it's about collating the content, even though it's on different services, but making it sort of searchable in one easy format. So if you go, I want to watch this program, it finds it on the service that it's is on and delivers it to you as like seamlessly as possible. So it's not sort of, from my understanding, to try to avoid you sort of leaving one application, going into another application and stuff. And there's always a sort of debate about between the broadcasters and the services that are on Sky about creating a definite wall that actually, we want you to know that you're entering the BBC environment. We want you to know that you're entering the Netflix, whereas Sky would rather you felt that you were in just a Sky environment, accessing all this content.
Yes.
So there is that always sort of ongoing debate.
Yeah. But the simplicity of the Stadia interface fits with that versus the, more kind of techiness of GeForce.
Yeah, that is a nightmare for me.
Yeah,
it's great for PC gamers, but
which is absolutely perfect for that.
But that's why I don't like it.
xCloud kind of, but I just don't think they'd want to necessarily get into bed with one box. So I think
Stadia is primed to take that position.
Absolutely.
And as I say, we're going to see it on Android TVs very soon, and it'd be very interesting to see how that develops.
Yeah. And Sabrina's coming up soon, so we're interested to see.
Absolutely. Well, there we go, ladies and gentlemen. I think, wow, I've really enjoyed this conversation today. I hope you've enjoyed the conversation today. I think we kind of discussed a lot of really good, useful points. I hope we haven't exhausted all the topics of conversation around Stadia.
Yeah, we've got
because
nothing
it'd
else
be a
to talk about
short-lived
now.
show. Yeah.
Dog breeding's another one of my
Yeah.
favorites. Maybe next time.
I got tons of these planned, you know. So we'll have a quick before we say goodbye to the chat, we'll have a quick look at the chat. Stadia Pro plus that was, oh god, it's whizzing by there, everybody. Oh my god, slow down. I'm totally waiting to have all my apps native on my TV as I don't want external hardware halts. Yeah, exactly. Resurrector thinks it's the future. The Daft Tux thinks Stadia Pro packages, including Uplay Plus, EA Origin, would make a lot of sense. One of the things I sort of mentioning about Amazon is Amazon do that already now, or started doing it in the last couple of years, haven't they? Giving you options to subscribe to other things within the Amazon Prime thing. So
that's true.
Again, and saying that Amazon Prime is a parallel to Stadia in terms of a mix of sort of Prime stuff and non-Prime stuff. It's an interesting model, and I think it is a model that we might see with Uplay Plus, EA Origin, and stuff like that, and maybe others. Daft Tux says, yeah, same for me. If it's separate, I wouldn't take it. Are you talking about as long as it's all bundled in one package? You just pay for one package and you get it. Maybe a different tier of Stadia Pro. Yeah, interesting. Dave Widnall thinks I just prefer to buy the Ubisoft games I want, which exactly the beauty of Stadia.
Yeah, you will still
pick and choose.
Yeah.
Jerry says, if I have to pay 15 for Uplay Plus and 10 for Stadia Pro all at once, that's 25. Hell no, I'm not paying that. I don't think anybody would pay that, Jerry. So I'm with you on that. That would be a lot. So they've got to make it compelling. That's the thing. They've got to make it compelling. I could see 5G ISPs bundling Stadia into their mobile plans. Exactly. We, on 3, the mobile phone offering in the UK, part of their package, they do unlimited Netflix. So for instance, if you get your 12 gig a month mobile phone plan, they'll bundle in Netflix, and it doesn't count towards your monthly download rate. So if you don't have an unlimited package and you're just having 12 gig and then you want to watch Netflix, your 12 gig remains intact, doesn't discount it. So that's part of the deal. So yeah, you could see those kind of models bundled in, because we see it now with Spotify on 3. I think 3 do a Spotify deal. I think Netflix and others, and the other mobile phone companies do similar packages, bundle it in. I think somebody was saying, I think Dave was saying that Netflix on Sky is cheaper than buying it, so they've got it at a discounted rate. So DKS Stadia, any idea how much you'd pay? Like €5 is good for me. Yeah, it's interesting. I don't know. I think Samsung, so Holtz is saying, I think Samsung will push cloud services as fast as, yeah, I think so as well. Because I've seen some game stuff on Samsung already. Not very good stuff, but it's interesting. Charles Aaron says yearly plus Uplay and ESO plus. There's so much fragmentation. I see big mergers in the future. Yeah, that's the thing what's happening with TV on-demand services at the moment. I'm not unlimited with 3 where I live. It's too slow for Stadia. 1 mile into town, it runs like 1 mile. 1 mile into town, Dave. 2 miles is even better. No, yeah, 1 mile into town runs like a dream. Yeah, but we're not talking about the now, are we, Dave? We're talking about the future and 5G. There was a report recently saying that UK's 5G is one of the worst around at the moment in terms of reliability and content, but that'll change.
They've sacked the supplier.
Yeah. Yeah, I admit it's best if they offer to the casual market, says Holtz. But there we go. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to call it a day there. I just want to thank everybody who was here today. I want to thank all the people that contributed to the Stadia Super Chats, everybody who contributed to the chat. Some really good points, really good stuff here. I really enjoyed the show today. I enjoy the show every week, but I particularly enjoyed it, partly because of that man down there. It's always a pleasure to be on a show with Stadia. Stadia Rocks with Adam. And of course, talking of that, tomorrow night, it's the Generation X Retro Gaming Club. We'll be talking all things not Stadia, but all things gaming. If you're new to this channel and you are not aware of the Generation X Retro Gaming Club, it's a different YouTube channel, but Rock and I host a show on that where we talk about all things gaming from the older gamer point of view. Yeah, no, that's both
thanks,
of us.
mate.
It's both of us. It's both of
I
us.
am
It's
older
both of
than
us,
him. It
yeah.
is true. I know
he's older than me by a matter of months. A matter of months. So it's current gaming news, but a lot of retro gaming news as well. Games that we played when we were younger and have grown up playing, plus current stuff, because obviously we still play current games. So it's a really good show. We go off on a lot of tangents, have a good laugh. Highly recommend. That's 9 p.m. Tomorrow. Rock, tell the people where they can find you and where your next show is going to be as well.
Thanks, Clive. Yeah, an absolute pleasure, my friend. This is, as I said on Twitter, this is your flagship show. So to share some time with you here is an absolute honor. And thank you to everybody that has turned up, because it's obviously heartwarming to see you all engaged. That's really good news. So yeah, I'm at Stadia Rocks on Twitter. My own channel is YouTube/C/Stadia Rocks. And I'm on other places as well. But if you just go looking for Stadia Rocks, ROKK, you'll find me. And as Clive said, we have, this is our first of 2 collaborations this week, tomorrow being Generation X. And I then have a show Wednesday nights, which is kind of a look back on the last 7 days of Stadia news called Rock Around the Clock. And then on Friday nights, we let our hair down. This week, we shall be playing some Bomberman with the community. So looking forward to that. And then Sunday mornings, Duncan from Cloudy with a Chance of Games and I have a very light touch game, Stadia Rocks, which is aimed at sort of casual gamers and people that are new to Stadia. So you can't get rid of me. I'm on almost every flipping day.
It's a
now.
kind of, it's not the antithesis, but it's a sort of completely different. It's a sort of, as you say, it's for the sort of casual person who's maybe not as in depth into Stadia as this show has been all about today. So it kind of serves a very different market, and it's a great show on Sundays.
We deliberately chose Sunday morning because, you know, a lot of people just don't have the time in the week to, you know, some of them are getting home late, they're grabbing their dinner, they're maybe, you know, seeing the wife for a bit, and then they're off to bed. So, you know, there is an audience that want to keep up with what's going on, but don't want it in masses of detail, just a light touch. And a Sunday morning works for them. So it's, you know, it's aimed at you if that's you. But obviously there are shows like this. If you just can't get enough of the really detailed stuff, then you watch Clive and what Clive's doing.
Brilliant. All right. Thank you for that. Thank you again. Once again, Rock. Thank you, chat. Thank you to all the channel members as well for continuing to be members. Thank you for all the super chat people today as well. Big thank you. It's really appreciated. Have a wonderful Monday afternoon, Monday evening, whatever it is where you are, and hopefully we'll see you all on the various Stadia Pro games or even Marvel Avengers tomorrow. Enjoy your gaming day tomorrow. Have a good one, and it's goodbye from both of us. Goodbye.
Yeah, take care.
Rage on that beat, going crazy.